Hello and welcome back. I'm Luke, the Crazy Maker Nerd, and today we're going to ask, can you now print miniatures on an FDM printer? For many years I've been 3D printing. I've had many resin printers, I've had 2 FDM printers, and the question still remains, can you print miniatures on an FDM printer? At the moment my resin printer is an M3 Photon from Anycubic, and my FDM printer is a Bambu Labs X1C. The X1C is probably the top in its tier for a hobbyist FDM printer. Anything more than that and you're definitely looking in the realms of professional 3D printing. I'm going to be taking one miniature and setting it up on both printers on the optimal settings. We're then going to print this miniature and compare the results. Hopefully together we can understand whether FDM printing has finally reached the point that you don't need necessarily a resin printer as well. So first of all, this is the miniature we're going to be using. It's Termi with Claws by someone called Mike Clark, available on Maker World. This looks like quite a complex model with some overhangs, so hopefully this will be a good challenge for the printers. We're going to be using the Anycubic Photon Workshop for the Anycubic, and we're going to be using the Bambu Studios for the Bambu Labs. So we're using the native software advised by the manufacturers for both these prints. So let's go ahead and download the STL. So let's go over to firstly Bambu Labs and we're going to import it. So there we go. So yeah, this is quite a high resolution model. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the auto align and let's see what that actually does in the first place. It might be it does a good job. That has done an awful job, which means we won't use it. So we're going to click it and flip it the opposite way. I always try to aim to have my supports on the back. Now in general, what I've been using most recently is instead of using normal supports, I've been using tree supports. The other thing I'm going to state is we're going to use this on my AMS, genuine Bambu Labs filament on a genuine Bambu Labs slicer with a genuine Bambu Labs AMS and Bambu Labs printer. If we hit the slice plate, let's see what it looks like. Okay, that doesn't look terrible. I mean, it does look pretty terrible, let's be honest. Look, we are on standard at the moment, so actually let's go to extra fine. Okay, yeah, we've got some more details coming through on that. The other thing that we can do is, so if you go through to the preview, you can see that we've got some odd layering here. So if you go on to variable height, you can go adaptive, which firstly smooths it, and then smooth. And what you'll notice is the bar on the right, the gradients become smoother. So that means it's basically kind of filling in the gaps, trying to smooth it out so it gets a better finish. So now if we hit preview, it should look a bit smoother and a bit less jaggedy around the neck. So what we're going to do now is we're going to run through the layering and check there's no islands. I think I might change the orientation ever so slight so there's less islands on the right. Yes, that's better. Now if we go and check the islanding, so we've got a large part which turns into a couple of islands briefly, then turns to a large part. Then that's a lot better. A lot less small islands are occurring on this. So that's our supported model. We've checked the layers. Now we're going to print it. We'll make sure that we run it as a time lapse so you can watch it being printed. And touch wood, it'll come out okay. Now, let's set up the Anycubic Photon. We're going to go to the Anycubic Photon Workshop Slicer. So remember, when you use a resin printer, it prints this way up. So ideally, you want any kind of areas where resin can sit the other way up so they can drain. We'll just push it back a little bit. And that's to allow for all that resin to just drain out slowly. So now we're going to go on to the support area. We would like to generate some automatic supports. About 5-10 years ago, you really wouldn't want to press that button. It just was a waste of time. You do it all manually. But nowadays, it tends to be pretty good. So let's have a look at how it's fared. So we've already got all of the settings dialed in. I use the Elegoo water wash resin. I find that's the most reliable for consistency. So we're going to slice this and then pop it on the printer. So I've taken off of the print that I did the supports for, and I've actually also printed it, as you can find it, on the Bamboo Labs website, Maker Lab, with the supports done by the creator. So I'm going to take both of these off, the supports, and then compare them. Now we're going to swap to the fancy lens to take a very close look. First up, this is the model printed on the FDM with my supports. As you can see, the front face is pretty good. We've got a small bit of detail loss. This is from the orientation of the claws being printed because the nozzle was going backwards and forwards. So there's a little bit of string around it because it's activating the nozzle for such a short time. And when we go down to legs, I said there might be some scarring here, and I was right. If we go around to the back, you can see all of the scarring from adding all of those support. This is the one that the creator has done. So it's of a lower quality. The layer lines are ever so slightly more noticeable. Things like the Aquila aren't coming through as clearly. We have a similar stringing issue. You can see the details are not coming through as clearly. So even though there's a lot of scarring on my one, there is, however, a lot more detail. But the real difference is, because this model is printed essentially upright, if we now go to the bottom, it's actually quite a mess. So you can see where the layering began on the claws. You can see there's a bit of this elbow has just gained a growth. This is the resin one. It's got all of those juicy details. Because I used some rather thick supports and I used auto supports, there is some pipping which has happened on the back, which would need a little bit of filler. But compared to the support material scarring on the FDM, it's almost non-existent. So this is impressive because the FDM has managed a really good job, in fact. Now I'm going to go and prime these. So the miniatures have been completely primed. I've used Citadel spray paint, so it's not probably as thin a coat as you could manage, definitely not as thin a coat as you can manage with an airbrush. But I think it's pretty representative for most people that do actually paint miniatures. Not everybody has an airbrush, everyone has access to a spray can. I haven't looked at them at all on purpose so that we can analyse them together. So let's start off with what I would assume the one using the default print profile. So this one appears to be smoother. It is lacking in detail, but you can tell from the bottom that there is still a lot of scarring. So this miniature would be rejected by me. Next up we have the one where I've supported it myself. So we've got a lot of more sharp detail coming through on the front. There are still layer lines visible. The back scarring is still evident, but that is a lot better than the default build. So if I only had an FDM printer, I'd be happy with that because I would be able to finish it by using a file and some sandpaper. Because only certain areas that need to have attention, like the top, is absolutely fine. Now, in fairness, the supports probably could be done more optimally. I did use mostly the default settings for the supports. So overall, I'll give that a tick. But then, of course, if you do have the option, there is the resin print. The thing is with resin printers,
They're horrible, they're messy, they're smelly. I use water wash resin, so I don't need to worry about any of the IPA and any of the chemicals anymore, because that did make it something where I could do it, but I'd rather not touch it. Whilst now, we've got something that's water washable. So the resin print is incredibly high quality. And this is only a 4K resin printer. This is why I don't understand going any higher. If I have to go incredibly close to see the detail, on the tabletop, I don't think you're going to notice that much. I'm going to show you an example. That is the shoulder, and then that is also the shoulder. You can see that there's grooves on the shoulder piece that is a lot deeper on the resin. If we turn it down to the back, you of course can see all the scarring here. And you can see there's no scarring here other than maybe there's a couple of pip holes which could probably be sanded very quickly. If we move around to this side, you can tell this is where the supports were on the FDM. So that brings us back to the original question. If you have an FDM printer, say you have the X1 Carbon or the P1S from Bamboo Labs or something of a similar quality, is it worth buying a resin printer as well? In summary, it depends on your situation. It's a bit of a cop-out, I know, but hear me out. If you want to do something like Golden Demon models, really high quality, you focus solely on painting, then a resin 3D printer is for you. There is no way that you're going to manage to get an FDM printer to the high resolution and high quality that a resin printer can manage at the moment. Especially based on the fact that today's comparison was on an out-of-date resin 3D printer, not the top of the line one. But we did have what is essentially the top of the line FDM printer. Now, the caveat to that is, are you only using it for wargaming? If yes, an FDM 3D printer might be fine for you. It just depends on essentially how close you want to view that model. Do you want to be able to put it up to your face and go, oh
yeah, that's an immaculate model?
Or are you going to be looking at it from 30 centimeters, 60 centimeters, say a meter away on a tabletop, and you're using it as a game piece more than a piece of art? In that case, an FDM 3D printer can do you well. Thanks for stopping by on today's video. It's great to be back and I hope you're enjoying the content. Make sure you hit a like and a subscribe button and write a comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. Do you own an FDM printer? Do you own a resin printer? What is your preference on what type of models? I'd love to hear what you have to say. See you later, my nerds.